Defiance Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Defiance Marine carries all the gear you'll need, from auxiliary kicker motors to fishing tackle, bait, and more. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine guarantees the best price on a new motor and the best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine has certified technicians, some of the best in the industry at evaluating your boat issues and any problems. Defiance Marine has boat financing experts on staff to help you get the best term and rates on your new boat purchase. If you need financing for a new boat, call or stop by and see them today. Defiance Marine is your one and only stop to help you get out on the water.
Cutbacks in funding and fewer law enforcement resources are affecting our businesses and communities. If your business is feeling the effects, Phoenix Protective may be the solution you are looking for. They offer security solutions customized to meet your needs. From remote video monitoring in their 24-hour control center to a proactive, experienced security professional on site, Phoenix Protective has over 20 years experience in ensuring the safety of their customers. Team members are highly trained and proactive, giving them the ability to adjust to the changing needs of their customers. Customers choose to work with Phoenix Protective because they provide the next level in security support to industries such as schools, hospitals, transit, and utilities. For a security assessment to see how Phoenix Protective can help you and your business, visit their website at www.phoenixprotectivecorps.com and select Contact.
If you're looking for the best fishing rods in the world, you really do need to take a look at the Edge rods. I designed and built new machinery, and I think this new machinery has enabled us to build blanks like no other company can build without this equipment. There is no other rods in the world that are as good as these rods. You owe it to yourself to take a good look at them.
We've got a ballistic solution app on my...
Tuna grounds are on the ocean, Tommy. We're gonna do that, don't go anywhere.
We've got all the great fish that make great fish and chips.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish on Northwest. Winning on Tommy Donlin.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. What a great week. Nice to see you back here, huh?
Yeah, it's been awesome, except for I pinched a nerve in my neck working out yesterday morning.
You got that going on.
So if I look at you like this and then I look at the camera like this, you'll know what's going on.
Just a pinched nerve.
Yeah.
You're not like stroking out on me.
No, no.
Look at all
face
jacked up.
isn't drooping, so we're good.
Right, yeah. Smile for me, please. Squeeze my fingers. Yeah. So, anyway, hey, welcome to the show tonight. As I mentioned, we are here live Thursday, 6 p.m. You are here to join us. We are coming to you from the Fish on Northwest Studios, located where, Tommy?
Summit Lake.
That's right.
Beautiful Summit Lake.
Yeah, man. How about the weather today?
It's been phenomenal. Can we just get more of this?
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Going into this week, the weather was absolutely sideways, literally, with gallstone size freaking hail coming down at however many miles per hour, and I was like, is my truck going to end up dented? This is beyond. This is biblical almost in nature, right?
Yeah, you lost power for a bit too.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, typical out here in Summit Lake area. We got a lot of trees out here. So hopefully everybody weathered through the storm, and now we get to enjoy what it is out there that's happening the last couple days anyway. And we're marching right on into spring here. I'm pretty excited. This type of, you said it, man, it's like you can smell it in the air, right?
You can
Spring's
smell it.
popping,
You can absolutely smell it.
Trees are blooming and we're off and going, and boy, lakes are opening soon, and it's it's that time, man.
Yep.
Feels good. Nice to get here. It is warming up, but I got to tell you, the other morning when JJ and I were out springer fishing,
tiddly bit nipply.
29 degrees, 30 degrees,
and
then we had just a nice driving 10 sustained wind blowing right down river, going with the outgoing tide and the current and the wind all same direction, which is great when you're trolling. but not so great when you're facing it, just beating you in the face all day. It was cold for about
that's part of the Springer program.
3 hours. Yeah. If you're not miserable, you're not Springer fishing, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, by the way, JJ, fantastic, delicious. Thank you for the donation for tonight. Tommy enjoyed it. Did you not?
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal, and I'm glad, JJ, that you actually slowed your troll down a little bit enough to catch fish. So
got one. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Good job.
So hey, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you jump on over to fishhuntnw.com. It's www.fishhuntnw.com. That is our webpage. You're going to find on the front page there in FHN20, which is your button to push. That is your coupon code as well. It takes you right to Edge Rods. Edge Rods, now a contributing sponsor here and a partner at Fish Hunt Northwest. We are proud as can be to be promoting Edge Rods for all that they stand for and what they create. So yes, through us and with them, you can go through our webpage, get to their webpage, everything you order online there, as you submit your coupon code FHN20, you are going to save 20%, Tommy.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
On every rod.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's like here to stay. You're getting 20% off just because you follow our show and Edge has partnered with us. So take advantage of that. It's coming up to a serious fishing season with a lot of opportunity on both salt and freshwater.
Yes.
You're going to need new fishing rods. Might as well go to Edge and get them, right?
For sure.
Fantastic. Well, handful of things going on as of late. Thomas, as we know, Saturday, wah, wah.
Bum, bum, bum.
So Area 5, which was slated to be about an 8-week season.
Yep, was supposed to.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Was supposed to go to April 30th.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now closing April 9th.
Yeah.
Which, WDFW has said current catch totals in Marine Area 5 likely to exceed preseason fishery regulation assessment model, known as the FRAM. We refer to that regularly, and in projected catch. High effort and high catch per angler have led to a higher than predicted harvest in the month of March. Okay, so I got frustration with that is because this is a loaf fishery.
Yep.
This is part of the list agreed to fisheries, and we have a season that is set. And nowhere on the table or in the information prior to did I see anything that indicated there's a quota-based fishery, like our Area 9, Area 10.
Right, which is different.
Correct.
Managed differently, correct.
So our blackmouth fishery in Area 10, for example, it's a quota-based fishery. They actually let us fish for a couple sets of those 3-day weekends, and they shut us down to get us further into the season, to give us opportunity with a little nicer weather at quota-based fisheries, right?
Right.
There's also an encounter rate associated with that quota-based fishery.
Yep.
Sublegal. We kept throwing out the numbers of sublegal encounters versus our retention of retainable hatchery mark select fish.
Yep, correct.
Okay? So when we're talking quota-based fisheries, there's numbers involved that we cannot exceed, and if we get close to those at a certain time frame, they're going to shut it down.
Yep.
And they did. Okay? This here was a set season.
Yep.
Okay? I can assure you I've been in discussions that you hear terms like underperforming, overperforming, right? It's like, well, we know our co-managers have caught what they anticipated in their catch quota for this year in their matrix of their 50%, however you want to pull those numbers out. But like their percentage of catch quota is projected to be XYZ by this time in season. Looks like they've already hit that number and we're 4 weeks into it and they have 4 weeks to go.
Yeah, they're not shutting it down.
They're going to continue to fish.
Yeah.
Why, Tommy? Oh, because obviously the run is overperforming.
Yep.
There's an abundance of fish that we didn't factor in. It's like we've had an amazing return this year, and there just seems to be way more fish than we anticipated. So the run is overperforming. They can go ahead and continue to fish because we don't fear that it's going to impact in any way, shape, or form the end result of meeting escapement or whatever the need is.
Right.
Now we're talking blackmouth fishery and CQ. Okay. These are hatchery fish put in that area. Pretty much a high percentage of them maintain in that area.
For the sole purpose of catching.
For the sole purpose of catching.
Yep.
This is a hatchery program. These fish are brewed and held over up to a year in fresh water so that when they put them into the salt, they residualize in that region and they're just going to, for a high percentage of them, are just going to stay right there.
Right.
Okay. So how is it all of a sudden we're running out of fish? We're encountering migratory fish, and we're not allowed to do that, or how does that work as we enter into the beginning of April here?
Right. Well, it's just kind of a situation where you get to make up the rules as you go.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I was assured we had a 2-month season, so this closure by higher than anticipated effort. I get that. Why?
Yep.
We don't have a whole lot else to do. Everything else is shut down.
Right.
People pay a lot of money for boats, electronics, and downriggers and gear, and we support
the economy, and we want to use them.
And we want to use them, and we want to go support the economy more by staying at hotels and frequenting the restaurants and spending the money, a high amount of money, big percentage of money on fuel right now.
Yeah.
Right? The state continues to receive tax on that. Why? Because we have highest taxes in the nation on fuel, for God's sakes. So we're willing to do all that, and we have a season that's set, and yet they want to shut it down because of our encounter rate, and our success is too high.
Right.
I don't get it. I'm going to hope to
either.
get somebody on the phone next week to kind of walk us through this.
Yeah, we can only hope.
And a few other things.
Yeah, I mean, there's still opportunity out of CQ. Obviously, Area 4 is open for bottom fish.
True.
Area 5 will be opening May 5th for halibut.
Yep.
Also May 1st for lingcod.
Correct.
And some rockfish. But, if I'm bottom fishing out of CQ, I'm definitely going to be running over into Area 4 with, better limits. You can have 2 lingcod over there versus 1.
Right.
Better rockfish limit, more abundance of them anyway. So yeah, halibut is just around the corner, May 5th, in the ocean. So we're less than a month away there. We had our Eastern Strait Puget Sound opener today.
You're right.
And guys are getting them, man. There's a lot of halibut in the docks. Yeah, there is.
I did not. Of course, you'd follow that much more than I was a little busy, doing other things. But
you were.
You said the reports were, it was a pretty successful. Of course, the weather definitely helped.
The weather definitely helped.
Right.
And I mean, I think, what also helps is that, Ron Garner, Puget Sound anglers, they've worked really, really hard to get that Eastern Strait, Puget Sound, opened up in early April.
Yes.
And those fish are in that eastern end of the strait now, right?
Yeah.
And so way better opportunity for anglers to go out and get those fish.
Good point.
And guys are capitalizing on it.
Now that goes through
so,
May 21st, you said?
It does.
Yeah.
There's a series of dates. It basically is going to keep going until, the quota's caught.
Right.
But what I would suggest people do is don't wait until May.
Yep.
To go, right? Go now, right? The earlier you go, the better, because those fish are going to start migrating west out of that Eastern Strait, and those areas are going to get picked over. And I haven't taken a look at the calendar to see when the tribal openers are, but you definitely want to hit it in advance of those as well.
Yeah, good point. But we do have 3 days a week through that the initial season, this initial opener at Puget Sound and the Straits. And you're right, folks did take advantage of that today. Good weather window to get out and successful outing, to say the least. I'm curious to see what the biggest one coming out of there today or the next couple of days. We got the tournament, got the Halibut Derby this weekend.
That's right.
8th and 9th. Got 2 days to fish that through Fish Northwest. They got to put on a great program, second annual, and hopefully participation's high.
Yeah.
Looks like we got some weather coming in on the weekend, if I remember right. But good for everyone getting out there and take full advantage of it. And let's get some halibut on the deck for sure. Yeah.
And I think we had a question about where would I go in Area 9 or 10, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I would say, I mean, obviously, if you can make it to the banks in Area 6, that's going to be your priority. But if you are kind of limited to, stopping around the Port Townsend area and south, I mean, I would focus my effort primarily in Admiralty Bay and maybe Mutiny Bay. I want to be as close to Area 6 as possible.
Right.
There has been traditionally some really big halibut come out of that Admiralty Bay area, and there's some pretty vicious drop-offs in there as well.
Yeah.
So that's where, if I'm stuck in Area 9, that's where I'm going to be focusing my energy, is kind of in that zone. But preference would definitely be to go around the corner and into the strait. That's
a good point. So some other things going on. Hey, you had put a post out here yesterday or day before.
Yeah.
You kind of leaned on, and this is why we should be 7 days a week at Westport, 2 fish limit when appropriate.
That's right.
I want to talk a little bit about what does that look like and why are we not doing that, and what statistical data is there that supports 7 days a week in Westport?
Yeah, let's throw up that graphic there, Jordan, and and it's kind of an eye chart, but effectively what you're looking at here is you've got basically the catch results on Chinook for the Chinook fishery. And traditionally, and we fight the battle every year, but this has been a 5-day-a-week fishery, and you only get one of those days on the weekend. And as you can see, that leads to a complete underperformance of catching on the sport fishing side. And so you look at some of those numbers, and it's like last summer, and we even had a couple weeks where we had 2 Chinook limits per person, and we still only caught 55% of the quota.
That's a very good point.
And so it's unfortunate that we have this state, and what it comes down to is the Charter Boat Association in Westport pushes so hard to try to make sure that their season lasts the whole summer, that they promote this 5-day-a-week season, knowing that the majority of the population that has a private boat can't go fishing. They only get 1 day on one weekend, and it's 1 Chinook, right? So at best, you got the working guy or gal, they come out for the weekend, but they can only fish 1 day on the Chinook fishery.
Right.
They catch their 1 Chinook and they go home, and that's it. They can't stay for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? But the Charter Boat Association can operate at will and hold those fish hostage. And so, that's the reason. Now, it's really sad because if you put this into perspective, you think about how much quota is left on the table, and then you look at some of the problems that we're having in river where these hatchery fish are making it all the way back to the spawning beds, and then we get in trouble because we have too many hatchery fish on the beds, and then they say, well, you guys aren't effective in catching them.
Right.
We're going to have to reduce the hatchery count, and that's exactly what just happened. We just lost 4.8 million hatchery fish that would go into the system this year.
Lower Columbia.
In the Lower Columbia, which is the fish that we're catching out off of Westport.
Correct.
And so we're already in this game, right? And so what we really need to do here is we'll start with 1 Chinook per person per day, but it needs to be 7 days a week.
Sure.
Okay. And then at some point in time, it should go to 2 fish a day, especially with the quota that we've been given. And there's really, even if you were to say 7 days a week, 1 Chinook per person per day, you're not going to eat that quota.
We're still not going to get to the final end of it.
No, you won't. You won't.
It seems to be, as of late, more than I've heard recently, that or in the past, a reoccurring theme. One, we got to be cognizant of the fact we have too many hatchery fish hitting the gravel. And then I put that challenge up against, well, when's the last time I've heard serious discussions in opening up additional bag limits for recreational opportunity, albeit in the ocean, albeit in the main stem fisheries and or the terminal tributaries. But if it's been recognized as an issue on certain fisheries, and this doesn't go across the board for all, but at times, if we have too many fish hitting the gravel, we have things in place that are not being put in play that could help assist with that.
Yeah.
Right? And you and I were talking before dinner, it's like, gosh, remember back when we had so many of these fisheries that had a 2-bag limit and or a bonus fish attached to it, a couple Chinook and you can get a coho, or you can go Chinook and 2 coho, or whatever those fisheries would support. But this year is going to be a classic example that we seriously, and we'll get into a little bit later, but we got some serious numbers coming back.
Yeah.
And how they're going to dissect these runs and give recreational opportunity where it's warranted, and what types of bag limits they're going to assign to those is where I'm kind of waiting to see how this all pans out.
Right.
Because what I certainly don't want to do is get through this very robust return of both wild and hatchery fish in some regards, and then we roll into this next season and they're looking back at data and what it truly did as it unfolded, and they simply apply we had way too many fish hit the gravel again, so we have to stop producing so many hatchery fish.
Right.
Because at times they are talking about both sides of their mouths. We're talking in one conversation in one room, hey, we got to really boost these numbers of Chinook, hatchery produced Chinook to save these orcas.
Right.
And in the other room, they're going, but should we do anything about the predation issue? Because if we're dumping all these fish into the waters and we're just feeding the predator machine, we're just truly feeding the predator machine, and do the orcas truly win at the end of that? And there's no answer out of that room. But then we go to this room and they go, I understand down there at room A, they want to produce more fish, but we got far too many hitting the gravel, so we got to produce less fish. But nobody's in room D to say, maybe we should think about giving these guys more opportunity when it's warranted.
Right.
And/or bag limits, exercise lucrative bag limits at times. I just don't hear those discussions happening. Maybe I'm missing the conversation, but as of late, I haven't heard.
Well, we're definitely having this conversation right now. The North of Falcon meetings around Westport, and going to 7 days a week. And at some point, right, there's a point in time during that season where it needs to go to 2 kings a day.
Yep.
And the other thing that I'll say is that, just keep in mind, the Westport Charter Boat Association does not represent all charter boats, okay?
Right.
So there's actually a good majority of charter boats that believe it should be 7 days a week and everybody should get their pick. So, it's something to keep in mind. Don't go out and judge, any given charter boat until you really know where they stand in the equation.
Yeah.
So kind of keep that in mind too. In fact, pretty much predominantly all of the express style charters, the 30-foot, 33-foot and under, they're all for 7 days a week. So, keep that in mind. I think it really comes into play when you've got, a lot of those larger boats, the deltas, that are having trouble, putting 10 anglers on Chinook, right?
Right.
The coho, they're snapping up, right? They're eating the cut plugs like crazy.
Yep.
But you have a bigger problem getting into those Chinook and kind of getting them maintained. So.
Yeah.
But even in the big boat charter fleet, they're not all aligned, right? No. And so really what I would ask is if you're part of that charter boat association and you believe that, it should be fair and equal and everybody should get their pick 7 days a week, you need to speak up and say something to the charter boat association so they know how you feel.
Sure. Yeah, if you go on without saying where you stand on it, you're
right.
Get your voice involved.
Right.
And nobody listens, and change does not come about. So they got to hear from us. They got to hear it from the masses, and this is a great avenue to make that happen. So valid points there, buddy. Absolutely. Okay, running down the show, we got a lot of good information to get through tonight, Tommy, as we usually do. Our buddy Eric Braaten, whom Jordan and I spent a couple days with last year over on the east side, bagged a couple turkeys. Two turkey bag limit, by the way, in that regard. So, Eric Braaten, admin on Washington State Wild Turkey Hunting Club on Facebook. If you're not a member of that club and you want to hunt turkeys, just simply give them a little look and invite and see if they'll add you to the group. But getting you ready for spring turkey opener, you have a week or so to prepare. And what you need to know, Eric's going to get you dialed, so stick around for that. Recipe of the week, Tommy, we're bringing one back. This is a good one. Out of all those we did last time, this pheasant schnitzel was probably one of my favorite. It's amazing, and the recipe that will also work great with your wild turkey, so keep that in mind. Captain Nick Clayton, first time to the show, but no stranger to the industry. All rivers and saltwater charters, one of the captains out there running for Coleman. Ocean bottom fish in Lingcod. How good is it right now? What to expect as the season moves forward? And of course, closing out the show, we got some Inslee's budget cuts and vetoes out of some of the things that pertain to our realm, some of the things that we discussed in the past several weeks going into the budget. Did he actually hit the veto stamp on some of those, and if so, which ones? And some Grays Harbor coho numbers. Holy smokes. But unfortunately,
don't hold your breath.
It's going to be up to the commission. And we're going to get into that because this one here is like, two ships colliding. I am very curious to see where this is going to go. You're going to want to stick around for a little insight on that one because we have some amazing numbers coming back, but what does it all mean if we can't have access to them? So, all right, don't go anywhere. We're going to jump out for a couple-minute quick break. Come back. We're talking turkey here on Fish on Northwest. We're going to get Eric Braaten on the phone, get you dialed in, ready for the opener coming up on the 15th right here, Fish on Northwest.
Sportco, an outdoor emporium, is the largest local outfitter in the Northwest since 1975, providing thousands of people affordable outdoor gear. This summer, make your next outdoor adventure more affordable by shopping at our warehouse-style pricing. We are a local Scotty dealer, offering sales, service, and repair. Located in Fife and Seattle, come visit us today. The outdoors await you.
For more than 90 years, you've entrusted one brand to guide you toward living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. Now you can entrust affiliated Better Homes and Gardens real estate professionals to interpret your needs and help you find the home in which to live your dream. Through every stage of your home buying or selling process, And through every stage of your life, there's Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. Expect better.
Sergeant Daniel Moulter began his tour of duty on October 21st, 1996, and ended his tour on June 27th, 2020. On the authority of Constable Carlos B. Lopez of the Travis County Constable's Office, Precinct 5, badge number 504 is officially retired, and Sergeant Dale Moulter is 1042. Godspeed, Sergeant Moulter.
Honoring fallen law officers of 2021. The 2022 End of Watch Ride begins in May from Spokane, Washington. The ride across the country to honor the men and women of law enforcement who paid the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our communities will cover more than 23,000 miles. We ride to ensure that no fallen officer or their family is ever forgotten. EOW relies on sponsors and donations to cover this cost. Please consider donating to help support the families and departments of the fallen officers. You can donate by visiting our website at www.endofwatchride.com/donate. Please support the Blue.
Hi, this is Joe and Megan from Archery World. We have 4 store locations. We are at the Lacey location right now. I just want to highlight some of our camping gear. We have Mystery Ranch packs. We also have trekking poles. We have crispy boots. We have 6 Hour optics. We carry Havalon knives. We carry Garmin products as well. So it's not just archery. We want to try to make this one-stop shopping for you guys. And so if you need it and it puts you in the outdoors, we probably have it. So come down and see us.
Welcome back, Fish Out Northwest. Wayne England, Tommy Donlin, and we are here in studio, buddy, going to talk a little turkey.
Yeah.
It's about that time of year. You know, the youth opener was here this last week on the 1st through the 7th.
And did not disappoint.
Did not disappoint. First couple days might have been a little rough. We're going to let our next guest in line here, Mr. Eric Braaten himself, with Washington State Wild Turkey Hunting Club, give us all the details on that. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Hey, we're good. We're good. Ready to start talking turkey.
On.
I mean, it's getting about that time. I know you've been out, boots on the ground, taking some youths out, and but the general season opener. Now that we're getting kind of through the first part of this and the youth season, kind of recognized from the 1st till today, the 7th. Now we're focused on that general season opener, and it's the 15th through the 31st, isn't it?
Right, 15th of April to May 31st, and it'll be here before you know it. But yeah, the weather's shaping up good. Like you said, we had an incredible youth season. I think on our club page we had right around 50 birds. 50? Members. Yeah,
wow.
50.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible amount of turkeys that the youth. And this is the first year of the 7-day youth season, which allowed a lot of flexibility for families during the spring break versus the 2-day that was last year. So
right.
I think it was a really positive switch for a lot of families. They were able to get their kids out and enjoy the, outside and chasing the turkeys out over here and just lots of great pictures, lots of good memories. And on our hunt, we had a fantastic time teaching kids about turkey hunting, and we actually it was a tougher hunt. I think you guys saw my stuffer decoy I made, but that thing was brought them in. I think that was the key, is having something, a good decoy out there. But we're going into opener. I think with a lot of great opportunities, lots of birds still. We have some cams up north on some private land, and we have some pretty decent flocks still. A lot of the snow is melting. Still have some snow in some shady spots because we had quite a bit of snow up north. But we're seeing a lot of good activity. A lot of gobbling. We did a poll, kind of a virtual scouting tool that we tried last year.
Right.
Put that out online, and it looks just like I thought. A lot of our northern counties are kind of still winter flocked up, and lots of hens and toms together. Down the Blues and the Klickitat, and probably, some of those areas, Yakima, you're probably seeing a little bit of the breakup occurring already. A lot of the toms have separated some hens, and they got them, kind of out on their own. So I think down there it's probably a better chance of getting some active, calling and, response times, and, getting some birds coming in. And up north, you might have to call in the whole group.
Gotcha.
So we've had some pretty hellacious weather over here, Eric. I mean, it was raining cats and dogs. We had
hail.
It was hail,
cold,
blowing.
Yeah.
Mass psychosis, among other things.
Right.
What when you talk about turkey hunting, I mean, I know I hunt that late whitetail buck hunt over there.
Yeah.
And so I know when I get that, either a snow or a good cold weather snap, that usually helps with that rut kicking in and getting those bucks really moving around. So for spring turkey, did you guys see any of that weather? And then can you talk to us about how does the weather pattern affect turkey behavior?
Yeah, we get April, the first 2 weeks of April, for the season, the 15th through the 30th, you never know what you're going to get over here in eastern Washington. Now, down the Blues and the Klickitat, it might be a little bit different, but even down there, they have sometimes you'll get a weird snow squall. I was just looking at the weather, and I think we're getting rain on the 13th over here, and then it's going to break up. But, yeah, we get lots of different, I've had the hail, I've had the snow. You wake up to snow in camp, and yeah, you kind of just roll with it. I think the worst part is in eastern Washington is probably wind. We have those really, those fronts that come in, the cold fronts, and they bring the wind with them. And that really is hard to call. Like last week when we were out with the youth guys, we were using our box calls, to really crank that sound so that the birds would hear you. So, but it can shut down the activity for sure. When you get those cold fronts. Now the Merriams, they're used to all that. So I don't not go out and hunt. I don't stay back at the tent or anything. I go out and if it's raining, I might find a tree or something. But I still I only have so much time to hunt, so I try to take advantage of it. But
that's something Dwayne would do. I know you wouldn't do that, Eric.
What's that? If it's raining, staying home. Yeah, fair weather to a hunter, absolutely. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the time you've had out now this last week or so, getting involved with this youth hunt and just boots on the ground and out there observing the bird activity and behavior. So let's say I didn't get out this first week, but I plan to hunt at the opener or sometime in the near future. If I come over in this next week and I'm locating birds and observing activity and whatnot, but I don't hunt for say another 3 weeks, is that can it be a completely different world by then? Is the information I'm gathering early on, is that going to be beneficial later for me when I get out to actually hunt?
Yes, yeah, totally. Depending on where you're at, a lot of our, as soon as these hens start to break up with the toms, they'll start to find nesting sites, and then they'll start dropping eggs. And, they spend about 2 weeks, laying eggs. And so once they go into incubation mode, which puts you at that 3-week period and beyond, you have less hens coming to the roost. You have more available toms. There's a lot of things that can change just with waiting till May. A lot of guys I know love to hunt May because there's not that many hens available that time of year. So yeah, don't get frustrated if you don't see, get the reaction you're hoping when you're out hunting the first week or so, if you're out and about and it kind of goes south on you. But look forward to May, because May is actually probably a better time. I've actually seen some hunting right up where we had early springs, years where we had really light winters. We had early springs, though. So let's say March was pretty warm, and then going into early April is warm. some of those hens I counted one year. I had a nest up in Stevens County, and it was May 1st, and she already had, her 14 eggs. I counted the eggs in there. So that tells me even up by Canada, they started nesting early. So, so even by the 31st, because it's 28 days to incubate those eggs. So even by the end, you're just going to have a lot of opportunities to hunt those toms. Those toms will become more available later in the season. So don't fret. It'll be okay.
That's good to know. I mean, so when you're scouting, and you're not seeing birds, I know this is not your case because I know you're finding birds, but if you're not seeing them where you usually would, or you're not hearing them, what's your next step on the scouting program? Do you risk a call? Are you worried about calling too early and then them not responding and you're kind of bothering those birds, maybe pushing them out of an area where they would stay otherwise? And how do you react to that situation?
Yeah, I think it's more the type of property you hunt. So, like, if you hunt public land along with other hunters, and there's those turkeys are hearing calls every day, you might show up on a weekend, and it's already been hunted that week, so it could be a different scenario, right? But if you're on, like, private land or maybe up in the public forest where there's not a lot of guys like to hike in or something, it could be a way different, scenario. So, what I like to do is, try to find, I just cover lots of ground, to find a bird. But, this last week when we were with the kids, we weren't hearing any gobbling, but we knew that there was birds around just by the sign. And we also had a visual by the landowner. So we knew that birds were in the area. So what we did is we decided to use our decoys, and we sat in the blind and we called, every once in a while, and just kept, the talking, and those birds just showed up and they were strutting in the decoys. So, a lot of times they'll come in silent. So just because you're calling and they're not answering doesn't mean that your hunt's a bust. I mean, I would give it at least 20 minutes per setup, just to make sure that nothing can hear you and move on, to another area. So
that's good advice.
Yeah. Last year when we were hunting in May, weather was, decently warm, and a lot of birds, a lot of activity. We're driving along the road, and you just see toms out there strutting around, following these hens, and then we get into certain areas. Now, you were just belting out this locator call, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that woodpecker call you use, but your first thing out of the box or out of the truck is this locator call. Now, is that something you're doing from day one, early spring, get out there and start locating birds by utilizing a locator call, or when is it applicable to use a call that's that loud and very attention drawing?
Yeah, I usually like to use that just kind of when I'm running and gunning, right? So I know that the habitat looks right, that there probably should be birds here, but it just kind of gives you that shortcut to see, okay, yeah, he's over there, or hey, there's nothing here, let's move on. So when I start blowing on I like that high pitch of the woodpecker. You can do the goose call or the crow call, but there's lots of different variations. Early on, 20 years ago, the only thing they sold was crow calls and owl calls, and so everybody out there had a crow call, and and so the birds, not that you couldn't get them to gobble, but you knew. That there wasn't that many crows around. So, I mean, it's just one of those things, that I like to not show all my cards, right? I don't, if I'm in the hunt and I'm in the heat of the moment, I'll use a turkey call, like if I know there's a bird there, especially after I've located them with the woodpecker. But, I like to use the woodpecker just not to show my cards.
Sure.
So. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So once you get on the birds, right, you're in striking distance, so to speak, and let's say you're not in the blind, you're outside the blind, you're doing a spot and stalk. What's your approach to that spot and stalk, and what's going through your mind? How do you set up for success?
There was a couple of hunts that your scenario reminds me of. One was a roosting, area that I knew that these birds pitched down into this field corner, and I mean, in my scouting, I watched them, work through this one farm gate, So, if you can scout and learn where those, advantage points are, those pinch points are, and set up in those areas. But if I'm just running and gunning, I usually, if I can get that bird to gobble, and he knows where I'm at, I don't necessarily just keep calling. I might just, hang up and just call that bird to me. A lot of guys push it too much. They'll actually kind of ruin the hunt, because those turkeys can see really well, and so any type of movement. So unless you don't have cover to get closer, even with archery, you want to kind of hang in close to cover and try to call those birds to you. So the stalking and spotting, turkeys, like in Lincoln County, where we have a lot of sagebrush mixed with pines, you don't have a lot of habitat to do a lot of sneaking, but in some cases you can get close and then maybe try to get set up so that they hear you. But I try to let my calls do the work for me, and it's a little bit safer that way, especially if you're trying to get in close just to make that kill,
Right. And I know people are thinking like, well, what's close? And I know it's terrain dependent, but can you talk about, in that situation, in kind of those loose pines, are you stopping 50 yards away? Is it 100 yards away? Is it 20 yards away? Like, can you give a rough idea? Like, how far are you calling these toms in?
Yeah. So if I do my woodpecker and I hear a bird gobble, and let's say he's 100 yards away, and I feel like I can move up closer, and I can get closer and get set up, and even like in a lot of cases, I won't even put a decoy out, because it's better for them to search you out in that scenario. So I might just set down and then just start calling. And if he gobbles right back at me, then I might cut him off and yelp again. And if he gobbles, then I just shut up and let him come to me. Now, a lot of cases, I played football, so I know my yardages, but I kind of try to figure that out, as I get closer, as far as where my shot distance is going to be with my weapon. So if I'm using a bow and I need to get closer, then I'm probably going to set up a little bit closer and try to get him to come into that range that I'm good at. So, and if I'm using an arch, if I'm archery hunting, like some of my buddies like to do, that decoys becomes even more important, because you can set that up before you even start calling, and make sure that decoy is at the right yardage, so that when he does come in, he's right in your wheelhouse. So, it all depends on the scenario. So I like to set my decoys right where, like these kids last week, we had the decoys right out there where we knew that their guns shot the best. So we put them out at 25 yards, and we knew that, if the turkeys were between there and us, that they should have no problem hitting those birds. So,
yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
Hey, before we get out of here, you had mentioned to start, you got 50 birds in the youth hunt this year, which is absolutely exceptional. And over there with you last year, we were talking about the numbers of birds, good high percentage of toms strutting around almost every corner. It seemed we turned. We had active birds, and we kind of, put that on the fact that the season before, with COVID and everything, the amount of folks who were actually out hunting, if at all, with the late seasons and everything, it just didn't really have a huge impact. So last year the numbers were outstanding. Going into this season, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing?
I'm thinking that the excitement's still there. I think we're going to see a lot of people out and about, that first week. I think, it's just the enthusiasm with getting out in the field last year. I think it's going to, if I can just gauge it by the youth season that we just had, which ends tonight. I mean, I had a guy stop by my work, and he actually was like, "Hey, I know youth seasons, do you know this area?" And he goes, "I stopped there and I got a bird to gobble. I'm going to take my daughter in there tonight." And I'm like, "Yeah, go for it. You got, the end of the day."
You're right.
So he was all excited getting off work early to go get his kid so that they could try to get a bird today.
Fantastic.
So,
Awesome.
there's more enthusiasm this year because of the 7-day youth season, but also just in general. So I think I'm looking forward to having a good turkey season, but I think you're going to see a lot of people out supporting the small communities that are up there that, are welcoming hunters, the businesses. I think it's going to be huge. So
yeah. Is there enough birds to support the increase in activity?
Oh yeah.
Plenty of birds.
Just from what I'm seeing and what my buddies are seeing. And, if it wasn't for private land, and we probably wouldn't have, a lot of birds,
Sure.
I mean, we have that ability to, balance, the no hunting areas, kind of help out the hunting areas because of the private land out there. So I think that's that's always going to be a positive thing in Eastern Washington, is having those birds having that private property to kind of grow those populations, right?
Yeah.
And so it's always going to be there.
I just got to know, one last question. Do we have the best turkey hunting in the United States, in Eastern Washington?
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of states struggling with turkey populations, especially down south. There's a lot of brood rearing habitat issues. There's a lot of things that are going on that they think are attributed to their low turkey numbers. And so we have it really good. And I think one of the things that is driving that is we still have growing populations. I don't think the carrying capacity has reached, I think certain counties like Spokane County, because of the urbanization of that county, and lots of, I think the carrying capacity is right there. But areas like Stevens County, which have, not only do you have the land base, but you also have elevation, right? So you have a lot more habitat out there that is being filled with turkeys, and then, we have a lot of predators that eat turkeys. So, it's not that we have high population, and I mean, cougars probably eat a lot of turkeys.
I'm sure they do.
As well as deer and elk and everything else. So, I think that we have plenty of turkeys. I think that we have the opportunities there. And I know that a lot of non-residents come to our state just to get that Merriam for their slam. Or, there's a new one that is it's a national slam where hunters are trying to get a bird in every state. And Washington is on that list. I had guys calling me wanting to know where to go to get their Merriam, and they're actually flying into Spokane, sleeping in a Walmart parking lot. They're shooting YouTube videos, and they're actually getting their groceries and their tags, and they're running out to a piece of public land using Onyx. They're killing their Merriam. They're, putting all that stuff in a box and going down to Oregon. I mean, it's just crazy, watching some of these videos online. So
yeah, that's good.
Right on.
I like to hear that.
There's a lot.
Well, good stuff. Always appreciate you taking the time, Eric. So knowledgeable, and you get people excited to start taking a look at getting involved with turkey hunting. They can find out a whole lot of information if they simply join you on Facebook, right? Put up a request to become a member at the Washington State Wild Turkey Hunting Club, and lots of great information you guys are putting up there. It's helped me out a ton. It's helped a lot of other people. So I appreciate all the work you're doing and the encouragement you bring to get folks enticed into turkey. So look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, man. It's going to be great.
Right on, guys. You guys have a good night.
Yep, will do. Take care, buddy. See ya.
All right. Bye-bye.
Eric Braaten, the turkey whisperer.
Phenomenal, man.
Yeah, he really gets excited about turkey hunting. I mean he's got turkeys around his place, for crying out loud.
I know.
Right?
I mean, I can see how it's addicting and why it's addicting. I mean, it's basically, big game hunting for birds.
Yeah,
that's basically it,
it's
right?
miniature elk hunting. That's why Phelps gets so geeked out about it, because he feels like he's warming up for elk season, and it's the same type of process. You're spot and stock, you get settled in, get there secluded in an area, good coverage, and call them in and watch some birds come strutting in and stuff. It's a whole deal, man. It's a lot of fun, and by the way, they taste fantastic.
Yeah. And we do have high population of turkeys.
We really do.
It's unreal.
Yeah, I should really try for the state of Washington State Grand Slam, and get the two birds over on the west side, or east side, and one over here. But maybe that'll happen. So went a little long, but no big deal. Stick around for this fantastic recipe coming up with Jeff Maxfield and Shing in the kitchen, Finn's Bistro. This is a pheasant schnitzel, but as mentioned earlier, Tommy, this would work fantastic for that wild turkey as well.
Yeah.
You could roll the meat off the bone there and pack it and tenderize it up a bit and get it cooked up in a schnitzel. It's going to be fantastic. Don't go anywhere. This is a really good recipe, easy to do, and I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. Back in Finn's Bistro when we come back from this break right here, Fish on Northwest.
If you're looking for the best fishing rods in the world, you really do need to take a look at the Edge rods. I designed and built new machinery, and I think this new machinery has enabled us to build blanks like no other company can build without this equipment. There is no other rods in the world that are as good as these rods. You owe it to yourself to take a good look at them.
A Northwest favorite for almost 40 years, Arima boats are manufactured with pride right here in Bremerton, Washington. Arima Boats offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. With literally thousands of Arima boats on the water throughout the Pacific Northwest, Arima boats are a proven hull design that offers incredible fuel economy and all of the amenities that a serious angler is looking for. All Arima boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Arima boats are designed to maximize deck space while also providing ample seating. Contact us today at Arima Boats for all your boating needs and let us help you get out on the water.
Welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen at Finn's Bistro in Issaquah, Washington with Jeff Maxfield, the chef and co-owner. And what are we cooking today?
We're doing pheasant schnitzel with a take on sauerkraut. That's just a quick sauteed cabbage with some of those flavors that you would recognize in sauerkraut, with the additional bit of bacon. So schnitzel is essentially a German fried piece of meat. So you bread it and fry it. It works great. It's typically pork or chicken or veal. We're using it with pheasant today. So
it's good with any of what we have in the freezer.
Absolutely, absolutely. This would be a great way to utilize your backstrap from your venison. Nice way to put that on the table for your family. Great for any upland bird, really, too. Chucker, any of those smaller ones. It's nice because you can pound out those little tiny breast fillets and they seem a little bit bigger. Plus, when you bread them, they get a little bit bigger as well. So first thing with the pheasant is just make sure you've got all your little feathers and shot out of there. You don't have to do a ton of trimming. Some of their silver skin on pheasant isn't bad as venison. We're gonna fry it out and it's gonna be just fine. Some of the fat, I like to leave some of that fat on, which is perfectly fine as well. And so then all I've done is just butterflied them out a little bit. So you can see here, we just take that knife and you run it on your cutting board and flip it over.
Okay.
All right. So with that, we're going to end up starting to do our trout here on the stove.
So just cut up a bunch of cabbage.
Yep.
And
so
what else do you have there?
We've got fennel seed, we've got dill seed, and caraway. And then bacon. So you can find all these in your spice aisle. They're easy to find. And then we've got the ability here to omit things. So, if you don't want to do bacon, it works great just on its own.
Okay.
So we'll start this.
Who doesn't like bacon?
I know.
Yeah.
All right. So what we want to do is get your pan hot. Again, nice heavy bottom pan. We're going to be cooking this for a while, so it's that heavier pan like we've talked about in the past, a heavy pan that won't burn so quickly. Certainly we're going to have bacon in the bottom, so those little pieces that get in there.
So no need for any oil because you're doing the bacon first.
Right. We're going to render out the fat from the bacon, and we're going to leave that fat right in the pan. We're not going to drain any of it out. You could certainly drain it if you'd like to, but I like that extra flavor, and it's really not that much more than eating a strip or two.
Yeah.
So in a little separate pan, a little trick when you're using seeds and things like that, coriander is one. Let's see if we can get this thing to light. There we are. Coriander seed, fennel seeds, caraway, any of those spices, they're best when they're toasted.
Yeah.
So if you take those seeds and you just put them in a dry pan and toss them around a little bit with a little bit of heat, you'll start smelling that, the aromatics of them.
Yeah. I would have never, put them without oil, so you don't need it.
Just dry. Yeah, and you can toast them in the oven. I like to do it on top of the stove just because you can keep an eye on it and make sure it's not burning. Because once it's burned, it's not so great. All right, so we'll just cook the bacon. It's going to continue to cook. If you like it super crispy, you can absolutely do that too.
And that's just plain bacon. It's not flavored.
Just plain bacon. Yep. So you can see that starting to toast up a little bit, and we're going to turn that pan off. And we're going to add our red cabbage. So I've done that bacon like 3/4 of the way cooked.
Okay.
And should be good there.
That's probably a couple cups or something.
Yeah, and you can make this in a big batch. The recipe is written for 4, which will feed the family. If you want to add extra, stretch that recipe out and make extra kraut and have it on a Reuben sandwich. Another way to do it too.
Oh, a Reuben sandwich.
So we're going to add our spices right to there. All right. And we've got some red wine vinegar. And again, deglazing the pan, always start with the pan hot, add your first ingredient, and in this case, bacon. Give everything a minute to saute.
Okay.
And as you start to see that, the stuff forming on the bottom, the browning on the bottom, the liquid is going to help release all that. Red wine vinegar, which just, I like using red cabbage just because I like the color of it. And, you could certainly use any cabbage. So now I'm going to reduce the heat down to low.
Okay.
And we're going to add in a little bit of sugar just to kind of offset that vinegar. All right. And we'll move this onto a low burner off to the side here, and we'll start breading.
The pheasant.
We'll bread our pheasant. So, with
pheasant is pretty lean, right?
Pheasant's very lean, yeah, and it works great in this application. Again, it's fried. You're making fried chicken, really, is what we're doing. But the nice thing is it's not this big messy debacle in your kitchen. You're not working over a bunch of hot grease. We're going to have a little bit of oil in the pan, but the nice thing is that it's you're not deep frying it.
Right.
So I like with breading.
Yeah, it looks like you butterflied it.
I did butterfly it, yep. And with breading, it's nice. I wear gloves just so that way you're not getting your hands all nasty if you're doing something else.
Yeah.
But again, there's a trick to breading, and a standard breading is flour, egg, and breadcrumbs. So these are Japanese breadcrumbs. That you don't have to toast or do anything. They're pretty much flavor neutral. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of seasoning.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't put any seasoning in the breadcrumbs. You just put it on the pheasant itself.
I do, yeah. And then I won't season it again in the pan. Just so that it's a one and done. So you've got 2 hands. This one now is wet, and because of the fact that obviously I'm touching the pheasant, what we'll do here is we'll go into the flour.
Okay.
And now use your dry hand. Shake off the excess flour into the egg mixture using your wet hand. Wet hand. And get off that extra egg. And then your dry hand again.
Yeah, I would just go both hands.
Yeah, and it's in restaurants, oftentimes when they're breading things, we're breading quite a bit of things, and so your hands just get gooped up if you don't. All right, so into the egg. And it's just a couple eggs that, you know, it's quite a few eggs actually, but that just scramble them together and add a little bit of water. You don't want them, you want there to be a little bit of viscosity to it, but not a ton.
Okay.
All right. So we are ready to go.
All right. Let's fry them.
All right, so another pan here, and you can use cast iron skillet. You can use, you know, we use French steel pans a lot here in the restaurant because they season up a lot like a cast iron. These are almost gray when you get them brand new, and I've had these for 20 years. Yeah, so they're well seasoned.
Yeah, ours are still gray.
You know, and you'd season these just like a cast iron skillet. So, you know, you want enough oil to just coat the bottom of the pan.
Okay.
And we're going to bring that up, you know, typically deep frying, you know, if you're frying something, you know, in a deep fryer, you would 350, 360 degrees. This, we don't want to, you know, scorch it. You know, it's going to be sitting in a pan. It's not completely submerged. And we're going to flip it over. So, you know, about 300 degrees or so. Yeah, medium-high heat.
Okay.
It's like, you know, browning a pork chop, essentially. You know, breaded pork chop. All right, and one little trick is you can take a little bit of that breading and throw it in there, and you can see it's already starting to go.
Yeah. Yeah, they look like pork cutlets.
Exactly.
Yep.
You know, and again, you know, these recipes are all interchangeable. You could, you know, do this with chicken, and you could do it with a pork chop. We've got a dish in a restaurant very similar to this using pork tenderloin that works really well. All right, so just kind of swirl that around in the pan, and don't be afraid, you know, look and see, you know, kind of the browning, how the browning is here. You know, one might, depending on your stove, if you're using an electric stove, it might be a little bit more uneven. So just move them around the pan a little bit. Nice color there.
Yeah, that one's, that one's a little more done.
All right. And we're just going to turn the heat down a little bit to finish that off. You know, you don't want to overcook it. You know,
especially
pheasant.
like pheasant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's read thermometer 160 degrees or so is perfect for pheasant. And obviously, if it's something that you've harvested, you know obviously how it's been handled and treated. So you know, as with any other meat, you know, just make sure that you know, if you've got freeze or burn or anything like that, it's gonna, you know, add, you know, some off taste to your dish. All right.
It's really important how you handle your protein after it's killed. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll move this out of the way here. Okay. And we'll plate. All right. So we'll do our Schnitzel. You know, and you can always dry this off in a little towel, if, you know, so you're not getting any of that oil onto the plate.
Served with the oil. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How's that look?
It looks
good.
Awesome.
All right. And then we'll do our kraut right over the top. And this is stuff I've had already pre-done. Yeah. All right. This would be great, you know, with mashed potatoes. Yep. Yeah. It'd be great with mashed potatoes. It would be great with, you know, Spatzel, which is the little German dumplings that translates to little sparrows.
Okay.
And in a traditional way to serve a schnitzel is with lemon wedge.
Okay.
And there we have our pheasant schnitzel.
Yes, and as always, as we dig in, we're going to go ahead and shoot it back to you guys in the studio. Yes, very good.
There you have it. Good, a handful of folks here commenting, Tommy, it looks yummy, it looks tasty. I can tell you, It was amazing.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me because I wasn't there to eat it.
It was amazing. Yeah, there's nothing Jeff cooks that is not amazing. I know. You know, if you have not taken time to get up there, make a reservation, jump on board with Finn's Bistro, take your significant other, get on the road, drive to Issaquah, get a hotel if you need to, if you're a little bit out of town, enjoy the small town there. It's fantastic. But to spend an evening there, wining and dining at Finn's is just...
I mean, it's all good, too. You know, usually when you go to a restaurant, the waiter or waitress will tell you, like, you want to eat, like, this dish, right? Because it's really good, and the other dishes are kind of... You can literally pick anything off of his menu, and it's excellent.
You will not be disappointed. If you do, by chance, ask the waitress, what do you recommend? I recommend everything. I do too. It's that good. But his recipes with us are just not only a lot of fun to go and do and create and watch him take, you know, always fish, fowl, and game, always wild game, right? And the recipes he creates with it. And then there's crossover. So you could literally take that recipe and you could do wild turkey with it. Right. It's going to be amazing.
Well, and the other things too is the recipes are quick. They're easy. It's not this
10 minutes.
You know, 20-part production where you've got to get 30 different ingredients and you've got all these steps, right? It's pretty simple.
Pretty simple and extremely good. Eric Braaten, turkey schnitzel.
Turkey schnitzel.
Yes. You got to give it a try, Eric. Let us know how it goes, or else I may pull what I have left out of the freezer and make that happen next week. So, all right, appreciate everybody hanging on. We got a bit more to get through. Gonna jump out for a quick break. Tommy will come back. First time guest, Captain Nick Clayton with All River Saltwater Charters. You and I have a number of questions for him on this bottom fishery out in our ocean, Westport area, and what to look forward to as we get into that deep water opportunity coming up not too far in the near future. Don't go anywhere. Jump out for a couple minutes. Be back right here in studio, Fish Hunt Northwest.
Allied boats are built by West Coast fishermen for West Coast fishermen. Deep V 21-degree dead rise at the transom guarantees a smooth ride no matter the conditions. Allied offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Allied boats range from 19 to 32 foot in length, so no matter what type of heavy gauge boat you are looking for, we have it for you. All of our Corsair 21 foot and larger designs come standard with reverse chine that is welded inside and out with no extrusions below the waterline, so that you will never have to worry about corrosion problems down the road. Get out on the water today in a boat that you can trust and enjoy with Allied Boats. Contact us at Allied Boats today to learn much more about our incredible fishing machines.
New days, new beginnings, new friends, new loves, new dreams, new goals, new scenery, new job. No matter what the next chapter holds, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate will be there to help you find the new that's right for your lifestyle. At any stage of your life. Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. Expect better.
Hi, we're Joe and Megan Malico, owners of Archery World up here in Lacey.
We're a full pro shop, so we have a full pro service also. We have a huge indoor range. We carry 11 bow lines, all the major bow lines, and then there's subsidiary companies too, like if we carry Bowtech, we carry Diamond. If we carry Matthews, we carry Mission.
When you come in, we're going to ask you, what kind of price point you're looking for. What's your hope, what's your goals, what's your flow. And with that information in mind, we'll point you in the direction of, that price point bows, and then maybe give you the option to test fire, maybe a higher level bow, just so you can compare. But it really is all about getting what it is that's going to work for you.
We don't upsell anyone. They shoot it, they like it, they don't like it, they don't get it. We don't operate like that. So if you need it and it puts you in the outdoors, we probably have it. So come down and see us.
Hey, welcome back, Fish Hunt Northwest. Tommy, next guest, first time on the show.
That's right, Mr. Nick Clayton.
No stranger to the seas, however, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Been with Coleman for quite a while. Nick Clayton, Captain, All Rivers Saltwater Charters. How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing good. Glad you could take some time and join us here. Tommy and I have been kind of itching to get somebody on to start talking about some ocean opportunity on bottom fish and lingcod and whatnot. So you're off and running when the weather's permitted. How's it started off so far?
It's been good. You mentioned the weather. I tell you, man, we've had some brutal weather. I think it opened up on March 12th this year, and we've only done a handful of trips or so. We've had to cancel a lot of trips.
Yeah.
The weather just and typically in March that's fairly normal. We're hoping a lot of times in April you usually get a pretty good window in April. It seems where the weather gets pretty nice. So hopefully here within the next week we'll see that. But yeah, it's when we've been getting out though. It's been good solid fishing.
And when you have been able to get out, Nick, has it been comparable to what you've seen in years past? How is the fishing?
Yeah, I would say it hasn't, in my time fishing Westport, it hasn't varied a whole heck of a lot. Especially the lingcod. I feel like the lingcod fishery is one that seems to be pretty well managed and seems pretty consistent. At least in Westport, I used to fish NIA in the Straits and in the Sound and stuff. I haven't in a number of years, but Westport, it stays pretty consistent. Last year, early season, say April, was probably the best lingcod fishing I've seen down there. I'm not entirely sure why. It's just in terms of quality of fishing and quality of fish, especially for the shallower, our standard kind of inshore trips. But no, I wouldn't say it's a way better, and it's certainly no worse. It just seems consistent.
Well, hey, one thing that is synonymous with season setting processes and giving us opportunity is you got to know where to be and when, and you better know where you are when you are out there in certain depths. Kind of walk us through the depth restrictions and when does it actually open this season for deepwater lings?
For the all depth, there's that 2-week section in starting June 1st. I think it's June 1st through June 16th, I want to say, where we can go out and fish lingcod kind of wherever we want. Prior to that, it's a little goofy. It starts out, it's opened out to, 50 fathoms. And then month of May rolls around and it closes and drops back down to 30 fathoms. And then June opens up and it opens back up to deep water again. It's a little funky out there, has been the last few years. But yeah, it's not too terrible. The 50 fathom rule really gives us a lot of places where we can fish, especially in Westport. You have to go offshore quite a ways before it really starts getting deep. So with that, we have a ton of leeway to find good fishing.
Right.
But when it opens up June 1st and we can fish, deep water, that's pretty darn fun, darn good fishing. As you've seen on, I'm sure, halibut days when you can fish lingcod any depth, like there's some deep water spots that are pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
So what is your approach, Nick, to lingcod and bass fishing? So you're doing this combo trip where you're going to, obviously the goal is to get your 2 lingcod and all of your bass. Do you start with lingcod, or is it like, hey, I'm going to go to a, quote unquote lingcod spot, and if I see bass on my sonar, I'm dropping for bass? And then as you walk through the season and that season rolls on, is there a trend? That's kind of what I'm curious about. Is there a trend in those lingcod moving around or those bass moving around? What do you see?
There's definitely trends in movements. Honestly, from the start of the season through when we kind of shift over to just albacore full time and we're no longer doing any bottom fish, there's not any one approach. It kind of varies on a few different factors. One factor is the tides and the current and the wind. So, we'll kind of look at what the wind is going to do. And if the wind is going to kick up in the afternoon, a lot of times we might try to get the rockfish out of the way first, just because it seems with the lighter gear and such, it can be a little harder to fish rockfish in the wind versus when we kind of get heavier and, bigger leads, bigger rods, or we can tolerate a little bit more for ling. So, if we're looking at 11 o'clock or something, the wind's going to kick up, we might just go bang out the rockfish first or attempt to. It also factors in kind of what we've been seeing. We almost always go get flounder first because we fish live bait for Lingcod. So most of the time, with very few exceptions, flounder is our first stop. So we'll get those. I would say probably 75 to 80% of the time we go after our Lingcod first, partly because that's the biggest focal point. If we don't catch a full limit of one species, people would rather catch all their Lingcod than, come up a few short on the rockfish.
Sure.
That's usually not an issue. But and then it depends on kind of what we've been seeing, when we really get going and start running a bunch of trips. The Lingcod, for whatever reason, might be getting tough and we might need to put more time into that. So we'll really focus on that first. Or maybe we know that, okay, this area where we've been fishing Lingcod, the rockfish have actually been biting really good. So it kind of gives us that leeway of like, if we see them on a sonar, we're just going to switch over and bang them out.
Sure.
But for the most part, I personally really try to leave the dock with a plan, and I try to stick to that plan unless, something that I see out there is just screaming at me like, hey, you got to switch things up here. But yeah, there's no one pure answer to that. I'm afraid it really just kind of depends on what we've been seeing and what the fish have been showing us.
Let's talk a little techniques and setups for, say, Lingcod and bass in shallow water presentation and opportunity. And then when you switch to that deeper water opportunity in June, is there much difference in what you're presenting in gear selection and in actual, what's at the end of the hook?
Yeah, so for our inshore trips for Lingcod especially, it's all 99% of the time it's live flounder. Sometimes early season, March and into early April, the flounder can be tough to get. Those fish tend to kind of migrate around to various depths, I think, more than anything, like during the winter. So sometimes when we get going, the flounder can be tough. So we'll bring herring just in case. We haven't had that issue yet this year, but it's always kind of on the back of our minds early season. Are we going to be able to get all our flounder or enough flounder to make it happen? But for our standard setup, we run just a 50-pound braid to a dual lock, basically. Then we run a 18 to 20-inch slider rig tied on 150-pound mono. Lead goes on the slider between two swivels, so it can kind of slide up and down. Sometimes put the lead on the slider with a little light mono, like a 12 or 15-pound mono, just to kind of act as a breakaway. A lot of times that doesn't work, to be honest with you. It just seems like 1 out of 20 times you snag up on the bottom, that breakaway will actually break off and you'll save your whole setup.
Right.
But and then off of that, we just run a standard 2-hook, leader. We tend to tie our own most of the time these days, using anywhere from 8-aught to 12-aught, either Gami octopus hooks, or I know last year we used some they're mustad beak hooks. It was kind of my first time messing with those, and mainly it was because we were having a hard time finding other options, I think, with the supply issues and stuff. I kind of learned during that. I like to run that bigger hook. I like those 10-aught, even 12-aughts. They just seem to find a purchase a little more often, especially when you're fishing live bait. And a lot of times those fish don't get hooked or not very well. But when we shift over, we don't do a lot different in our deeper water trips. Honestly, we used to do a lot of pipe jigging, which is very effective out in that deep water. Nowhere near as effective inshore, for whatever reason. My guess is when you're out in 400 or 500 feet of water at that depth, it's dark. I think anything that just moves and makes a ruckus is food. So they just pounce on it. They're not super picky.
Right.
But we kind of shifted over the last few years to doing a lot of live flounder fishing in those same scenarios, and less pipe jigging. Partly because it can be extremely effective, every bit as effective as inshore, but also because it's pretty easy to do. You know, you guys, I'm sure, have done a lot of pipe jigging, and that'll wear somebody out really quickly.
It does. Yep.
So when you're charter fishing and you have crews of just all sorts of families and maybe people that don't fish as much and whatever, having techniques that are pretty simple can make things a lot easier. So having that flounder where we can just drop it down to the bottom, and especially if we have kids or something, we can just drop it down to the bottom and put it in a rod holder, you know, and they're still fishing, they're still catching fish, but you know, they're not just absolutely wearing themselves out. And put those pipe jigs, the second you stop moving them around, you're basically just kind of wasting your time. So makes things a lot easier.
And how are you hooking those flounder? It's a 2 single hook rig, and is the leader also 150 pound? And then how do you put the hooks into those flounders?
Yeah, so I think our leaders we have big spools. I think they're 80, what we've been tying on the last few years. You know, and I think we all kind of do it a little differently. My favorite way is I take that bottom hook and I run it to the flounder's mouth, and I poke it out the gill plate and I pull it down. And then I take that top hook and I run it right through the jaw, just pin the jaw shut. And at that point, I'll take that second hook that's ran through the gill plate and just dangling, and I'll just kind of stretch it down, you know, depending on the size of the flounder and the spread I have between those two hooks, and just kind of get it fairly taut and fairly straight, and then just kind of right through the side, you know, like you would on a cut plug herring or something. So it's just kind of sticking out the side. I like to do it that way because I feel that we lose less flounder. Like if we get bit, or if we maybe drag it along the bottom or something, with that hook going through the gill plate and that line going through there, it really seems to help keep them on there. You know, you might bring them up and they're mangled, or they're kind of hanging funny, and you just got to readjust it, but they don't fall off, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I like that.
Hey, so the segment before getting you on, Nick, we had our chef Jeff Maxfield, who's phenomenal at cooking all fish, fowl, and game, and you're out there in the water a lot, getting all season long, all the different opportunities you have. But when it comes to Lingcod, what might be, like, I don't know, one of your favorite go-tos or a simple recipe? What's your favorite way to do up Lingcod?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Lingcod is my absolute favorite fish to eat up here. Absolute favorite. You know, when I'm at home, I like to just take fillets and pan fry one, and you know, some blackened seasoning or something. I eat a lot of it just on my own for a lunch or something. But one that we do a lot down in Westport is a crew, because we'll take a crew fish or two, you know, pretty regularly, and we all kind of contribute and cook dinner. But it's pretty simple. We'll just take some mayonnaise, a bunch of Parmesan, mix it together, maybe throw in some garlic powder, onion powder, you know, whatever spices, and then we just layer that on the top of the fillets, and then top that with a little panko, and just bake it just like that. Oh man, it's phenomenal. We do that sometimes 3 days a week.
I'm hungry again. Yep,
it's
absolutely.
hard to beat it.
Well, hey, really want to give you thanks for taking some time to jump on here with us tonight and get the information out there for the folks. So if you guys have openings and folks want to jump on board, get out there on the ocean, go after some bass, some bottom fish, lingcod, what have you, either in near shore or the deep water opportunities, best way for them to get a hold of you and hopefully jump on your boat with you?
So allwashingtonfishing.com is the website, or you can go to the All Rivers and Saltwater Charters Facebook page. Mark and Mary Coleman own the business, and Mary, she does all the bookings and all the schedulings and stuff. So anybody that wants to hop on with me specifically, all they got to do is send her a message through the website, send her a message on Facebook, or call her. The phone numbers are on there. And she's phenomenal at doing what she does. I don't know how she does it. She keeps the business going.
She's a busy lady. Oh, yeah.
She really is.
Yes.
But, yeah, all you got to do is just say you want to go with Captain Nick, and she can make that happen. You know, I get a lot of emails and stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm more than happy to answer questions for people, you know, help facilitate any of that. But the actual booking part of it does go through Mary. And then, you know, I just drive the boat.
Fantastic.
Awesome, Nick.
Well, you're doing a great job. So hear nothing but good things about you. Look forward to they're running into you down there on the dock, and who knows? Maybe we'll jump on the boat and spend a day on the water with you. That'd be a good time. But anyway,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Captain Nick Clayton, appreciate you taking time this evening. Good to have you on, and we'll get back with you soon.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Tie lines, brother.
Bye.
All righty. Well, a little insight as to what goes on out there in the ocean, Tommy. Not that it's unfamiliar to you and to us as well, but you know. Can't go wrong jumping on board with the Colemans.
No.
I mean, any of their
They've got it so dialed.
Their captains are just, you know, some of the best in the industry out there.
Yeah, and when the weather allows, they're all out there. Yeah.
So if you have an interest in getting on with them and taking advantage of all the different seasons they offer, make sure you get a hold of All River Saltwater Charters and get booked, and you'll get to talk to the lovely Mary herself and get on board, right? Okay. We're not done yet. We have a few things we want to get through before we close out the show here, Tommy. Got some numbers coming out of the Grays Harbor coho opportunities that are the season's getting formed and the meetings are happening with north of Falcon. And ultimately, this particular area, this region, some of this decision-making process may fall on the shoulders of the commission. And where are they going to weigh in, and how will they allow WDFW to craft this season? Based on what? Oh, the science.
Right.
Let's follow the science and see where we end up. That and a little bit more on Inslee's budget, what made it in, what got vetoed, some interesting information coming out of the governor's office, and a few other things to tidy up. Don't go anywhere. A couple-minute break. We'll be back here to close out the show right here, Fish Hunt Northwest.
Defiance boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Defiance boats come standard with large fish boxes that are fully insulated so that you can ice your fish properly all day. Defiance boats feature a 21 to 22 degree dead rise at the transom and a large reverse chine for incredible handling and stability offshore. Defiance boats are foam flotation filled and unsinkable for the ultimate in safety while fishing offshore. Defiance boats feature fuel-efficient hull designs with large fuel tank capacity so that you can have maximum fuel range for making long offshore runs completely safe and affordable. All Defiance boats come standard with self-bailing decks for improved safety while at sea. Defiance Boat offers all our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Defiance Boats for all your boating needs, and let us help you get out on the water.
Today, the need for quality private security services is at an all-time high. Contract Security Service provides day-to-day peace of mind as they protect people and property. Here at Phoenix, we provide service for multiple state and federal contracts with services ranging from uniform, patrol, alarm monitoring, canine detection, executive protection, as well as investigative work. Phoenix client management models are built on understanding our clients' security needs and responding with a tailored program that is best fit for them. Phoenix provides excellent customer service through well-trained, highly motivated security professionals. Recruiting highly qualified officers is the first step in building a strong team. Currently, we are comprised of 70% prior law enforcement and military veterans. If you are prior military or law enforcement, go to www.phoenixprotectivecorps.com and apply today.
Yep, for sure.
Oh yeah, big fish. Yeah, buddy. Nice fish. Oh, beauty. Gorgeous fish.
Bobby's on the board.
We got a good one.
Oh yeah. Oh, oh, geez, come on.
Nice fish. Nice fish.
Welcome back, Fish Hunt Northwest. Tommy, we are ready to wind this thing down here.
But before we do that.
What's that?
I said, but before we do that.
Before we get there, yeah, we got some information to get through here. So if you have taken the time, maybe you haven't. Now, one thing I found that's very simple. All these meetings going on with North of Falcon process, whether it's Puget Sound region, Columbia River, Grays Harbor, North Falcon 1, North Falcon 2, you could literally Google WDFW North of Falcon meetings on YouTube, and every one of them that they have put out there comes up. I missed the meeting last night because I got home too late and I was finalizing show content. And I pulled it up this morning, got a cup of coffee, was kind of just, I just Googled that, found the Grays Harbor region meeting, popped that on, listened to, I kind of fast forward through the intro because it's the same stuff every time. But you get to the meat and potatoes of it, they start putting up the graphs, they start putting up the charts, they start showing you the numbers and the preseason forecast models. And now they're starting to drop that information into certain model plans which kick out numbers and coefficients and things where are we going to end up if we go, conduct this type of fishery from this date to this date, this bag limit. What does that do? What's our impact to the escapement numbers that we need, right?
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to. When they're managing these fisheries, again, guys, they manage them for the wild component of any fish strain, whether we're talking Chinook in the harbor region or out on the coast or Puget Sound or coho or even chum, pink salmon, believe it or not. I mean, they're all based on the wild fish component and meeting escapement to ensure that there's enough fish hitting the gravel.
Right.
So this year is, we've talked about it, the number of coho coming back. It's relevant in the discussions in Puget Sound. It's relevant in the discussions out on the coast. It's relevant in the discussions here in Grays Harbor. And in Area 2, Westport, the ocean fishery, the abundance of coho that's going to be out there, we're talking 200,000 more than last year, and last year was just unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. It was crazy.
Right? So we have a pretty wide open opportunity, so we think. We start kind of drilling down in this region out here, Grays Harbor, kind of off my backyard, 150,000, coho coming back. And you're going, man, that's a lot of fish, right? But there's some constraining factors that they take into consideration when they start crafting these seasons and opportunity, bag limits, time on the water. When you start calculating the time on the water for the Grays Harbor, saltwater opportunity, right? Now, just outside of just moving this way off of Westport, coming into the actual in-harbor area, you have that saltwater opportunity. Gets up into the main stem Chehalis, gets up into the tributaries, and there's a lot of them. These coho go throughout all of this part of the region, and the numbers for each and every one of those count to some point. So they got to try to figure out, if we have a wide open fishery in the saltwater, what does it do to the main stem opportunity? What does it do eventually to the tributaries? And do we hit an impact percentage on the wild fish escapement need? And will we thereby fish it under escapement?
Right. Yep.
So it's really kind of a numbers thing. Some will refer to it as paper fish, but it's really how they model the fishery to land where we want to land. Now, we as recreational participants, we look at that number and go, my gosh, there is a ton of coho coming back. But it's not just a one and done. In other words, it's not just an in-season, this season window that they look at to put the numbers on the paper to say, we get this opportunity to go after this many fish between these dates. They have to take into account some of the management information or script that has been written previous to this. In other words, like in Grays Harbor, there are certain clauses, 3 of 5. Like you have to meet escapement 3 out of 5 years to have this type of fishery, right? Or you have to meet escapement 3 out of 5 years to have this big of impact on the fishery. And if you're not meeting escapement, then it kind of puts you in the penalty box and you can only have a minimal impact. So really what this region falls under currently is no more than a 5% impact to the escapement goal.
Right.
Now, if they need 35,000 fish and you project preseason modeling, you have 40,000 fish coming back. You go, okay, that's a narrow margin, but we can utilize that 5,000 fish above need, because that's what your 5% is, or your 2,000 fish would be your 5%. But if you got 5,000 fish to play with, you're probably not going to have a season on wild fish, but you're going to utilize those impacts on catch and release mortalities to go after your hatchery fish, right?
Yep.
Understand that, right? That's how that works. So it's not always that just because there's more wild fish than is called for in your escapement that we just get to go fish and kill all those fish. Those are impacts that we jeopardized by simply catching and releasing those fish. There's that mortality rate associated with it. If you have 40,000 fish, your impact on that in your 5% is going to be 2,000. So they're comfortable with allowing us to go after our hatchery fish.
Sure.
We have 150,000 fish.
Right.
If they held us to a 5% impact above escapement, we're going to jeopardize letting 100,000 plus fish go on past.
Right.
That we don't get to retain or utilize out of the resource. How many of those hatchery fish are also mixed in with the wild fish that are just going to be, they used to use the term foregone opportunity. Now, I can assure you that if WDFW decides, nope, we're going to stick to the letter of the law, we're going to follow the management process, and we're going to not have more of an impact than 5%, the co-manager is going to go, well, you guys are crazy, because there's way too many fish coming back, and we're going to
catch them.
We're going to have our nets in the river 7 days a week.
Yep.
Okay. There's those types of discussions that probably could happen. That's not where they're going to go with it. But what I do like is that they put a lot of options on the table. They looked at that number and they go, 5%, yeah, I get it. It's where we should be based on previous years and all that. But look, let's face it, this is ridiculous to let this many fish go on. So they move some numbers around, different months, different bag limits, different areas, They have this model they're very confident in, and the numbers and the science would support it, okay? It could potentially push the impacts upwards of 18%. It sounds like a lot. Sounds like, oh man, are you sure you can do that? Putting that in perspective, it still allows for 38,000 fish above escapement need to comfortably hit the gravel.
Right, and the escapement need is 40,000?
35,000. So you're
doubling it.
You're still doubling the escapement on the gravel.
Yep.
You have such a bumper that you can conduct a fishery which has an 18% impact and still allow for additional 100+% of escapement to then again reach the gravel.
Yep.
Sounds pretty reasonable, right? What does that look like? It looks like 2 fish bag limits for October in certain areas, especially these tributaries. Now last year in comparison, we had a lot of coho. We just talked about it. Like Westport was crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of wild fish. And we had to weed through a lot of wild fish, like when we were even on the tributaries, to get our hatchery coho. And that's not always the best way of managing fisheries, because these fish come in these rivers with a little shot of rain. They're moving up so quick. You catch them, you let them go. There's scales coming off them even in the river, right? They're that fresh. So it sound science to take a look at it and go, we can comfortably exceed the 5%. Impact. We can bump that to an 18%. What does that look like? We can have a 2 fish limit, select or non-select. In other words, wide open. In other words, you'd see a regulation that might say release all Chinook. It tells me I can keep hatchery coho, wild coho. Then we go into November. It might say retain 1 fish, release all Chinook. In other words, I can keep a hatchery or a wild coho. But it's now down to a 1 fish because we don't want to really, drive that 38,000 fish buffer. We just don't want to consume that. We want to have a really wide margin for error, and that one there is. When you exceed your escapement by an additional 100%, that is a huge buffer, right?
Right. And you would know by that time, right? Like in November, you would know if you've met your escapement goal already, right?
Well, if the front edge of that run was so robust that, but that's not necessarily what they always want to do either, right?
Right, they want to wait.
You want to get a good push in the front, a good push in the middle, and a good push at the end, because years down the road, that just sustains that fishery that much better.
Sure.
Because you don't have all early arriving fish, you don't have all really late arriving fish.
Right.
You want it spread out over a few months,
in case something happens to any one part of that. Yeah.
So the floods this last year, we may be paying for that 2 years from now. Right. So I guess the long and the short of it is pretty lucrative in October, maybe a one fish in November. Good probability, get to continue to fish in December. Now again, last year we had agreed to fisheries through December, coho retention, hatchery only. Those were completely done away with the steelhead debacle that was.
Right.
We've asked the question going into it this year, does that mean with steelhead in the unknown, are they going to close the fishery earlier? There's been no definitive answer on that as of yet. I got to think the encounter rates of wild steelhead in the month of December do not warrant closing down an entire fishery once again. I would like to see us get through October with a 2 fish, get into November with a 1 fish, hatchery or wild, get into December with the retention of 1 hatchery coho, and you would have opportunity for 1 hatchery steelhead. And then the steelhead fishery, more than likely, I'm assuming, will be closed again in January. And coho would be done at the end of December. But we have a really good opportunity going into it, early season especially. October could be fantastic. We're talking about that 2-fish limit that seems to elude us so often. Here's a great opportunity because the numbers are so high.
And there's really no reason why we shouldn't be able to fish on that run. But as you pointed out early on, this is going to come down to the commission.
Correct.
Right? So this proposal for an 18% take, right, instead of a 5% take, that's got to go in front of the commission. And they have to go thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah. So the onus is on staff to present sound science to say, here's where the numbers are at. We feel very strong that we can conduct these fisheries within these parameters, and we are going to not only meet escapement, we're going to exceed escapement by more than 100%, additional on top of, right? The commission, that we currently fall under, now they've already showed their hand in the bear hunting.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
This is their first opportunity now going to north of Falcon, where they got to start making some decisions on some of these models that these different groups are going to be bringing out of these meetings and collectively coming to agreement on this particular model for this fishery and how we're going to conduct this fishery. They present that to the commission, and commission has to either buy off on it, believing the science produced by staff who are very good at their job and should be supported as such, or blatant disregard and say, no, stick to the policies. So the policy would drive you back to that 5% and a whole bunch of fish going upriver for no reason whatsoever other than a commission that can't see past their nose.
Right.
To understand that it's not always so cut and dry. Everything doesn't fall within, A to Z. There's outliers. There's certain years that these bumper crops of fish coming back. And we as citizens of Washington State and the co-managers deserve the opportunity to take advantage of that if it doesn't impact recovery.
Right.
Right? And their job, written within their job description, their bylaws and those rules that they follow, is to maximize opportunity to recreational harvest when deemed available and doesn't jeopardize recovery.
Right.
This is a prime example. So we're going to see where this goes. If they balk at this and slam the door shut and we don't get this opportunity on a number of these fish, it really shows their hand now, both in hunting and fishing.
Yep. And we kind of said it early on that, just because they're talking about a bear hunt now doesn't mean they're going to come after the fisheries later. So it's going to be really telling with this one right here, where they stand going forward.
I agree.
And if they can't support this, we've got a very tough road ahead.
Yeah, because this to me seems like a pretty simple one.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And if they want to get recreational community as far as fishing, kind of being, okay, maybe the commission's not completely doom and gloom and all evil. If they want to get a little bit of buy-in and maybe they think we're going to support some of their decision-making process, there's a great opportunity for them to show that hand. But if they go the other way, boy, all bets are off, man. We got a tough road ahead.
I agree.
So. Along with that, Governor Inslee had the opportunity those last few weeks to walk through the budget. He's vetoing certain components of that, and there was a number of things. You remember, you and I talked about it in his $87 million ask initially. There's a number of things in there attributed to, or it was $187 million ask. For the sports fishing and whatnot and recovery and things. So a number of things in there. Legislators wrote a number of those into the budget, presented them in the budget to the governor, and he has the ability to either say yes or veto. Yep.
Yeah. So let's run down a couple of those. So the first one was now remember, this is voluntary buyback of non-tribal gill nets.
Correct.
On the Columbia. So to me, this one's kind of a red herring. It's a $14.4 million budget item. And it doesn't apply to all the tribal gill nets. It's just non-tribal.
Non-tribal gill nets.
And what's interesting in here is that it notes that this is to reduce the impacts of the gill net fishery. But it was funny because one of the other line items in the budget was to place a third-party viewer onto the gillnet boats and gillnet fleet to try to understand what their actual impacts were to wild fish, bee-run, steelhead, things of that nature.
Right.
And it kind of tells me that maybe they don't really know what the impacts are. They haven't documented them very well, but at the same time, they're going to go ahead and put this out there to try to remove a very small portion of the gillnets out of the Columbia River. Now, here's the thing that gets me, is that this, it only applies to a very small subset of fishermen, right? It's only the commercial, it's non-tribal, it's a voluntary program, not required. And the other thing is that you've got a quota, okay? The gillnetters are given a quota of fish. Just because you have 2 less licenses or 5 less licenses, 5 less boats on the water, doesn't mean that their quota, shrinks by that much.
Correct.
It's still the same.
Right.
And at the same time, we've already had hatchery reductions as a result of not getting those hatchery fish off the spawning beds. So it makes me wonder, even if there were gillnet boats reduced and gillnet licenses sold back, is that even going to do anything? And then the other thing is, if you do reduce the gillnet fleet enough to where they're not taking the hatchery fish out of the system, isn't that just fodder for the state or the commission to say, well, I guess you got to reduce hatchery runs even more.
Or the wild fish groups.
And oh, by the way, there's not enough fish to have a fishery, so hope you guys like a reduced season. And then the other thing that I look at when I look at this from a budget standpoint, $14.4 million. What happens when the gillnetters say, I'm not doing it?
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, I don't think that $4.4 million goes back into the bank account, right? It's going to get distributed somehow.
You bring up an interesting point. I'm going to jump ahead to this other one, and you kind of had mentioned it. So Inslee vetoed the third-party scientific review. In other words, observers on board with non-tribal commercial gillnetters on the Columbia River, Chinook fisheries or what have you, impacts to, as you mentioned, bee-run steelhead, which they don't know, catch and release mortalities on wild fish that they cannot retain, revival boxes, the whole program. Truly, what is the number? What is the impact to these wild fish? And can we get some statistical data to support where this truly is, right? So that gets vetoed because they said there's not enough money in the budget to go ahead and allow this. Previously, excuses from WDFW and whatnot was that there was a discrepancy in the insurance. Persons being on board as observers, the insurance wasn't going to be suitable. And I'm thinking, they're a state employee. How do they not have insurance?
Right.
Anyway, so we haven't had this, we need a couple seasons in a row of these targeted gillnet fisheries going after Chinook, what the impacts are to the steelhead, which on the Columbia are in dire straits. The last 2 seasons have been dismal and to levels that exceed concerning. I mean, really some serious things going on with our steelhead on the Columbia River and the upper tributaries, where we're conducting these gillnet fisheries, impacting on the steelhead while all your recreational opportunity upriver in your tributaries is closed to steelhead, right? So the numbers are concerning, the impacts are concerning. We vetoed it, so we're not going to have observers available on board. But yeah, we're going to put $14.4 million into a program where it's a voluntary buyback. And I'm pretty sure the line of persons lining up to receive their checks to turn in their license and their gear is going to be extremely short. And that $14.4 million would be more suited to let's not worry about the buyback program right now. Let's get the statistical data and the science that our commission is screaming for in all facets and say, hey, let's put that money where the work can be done and not have the governor veto that out of there and truly drill down on what the impact of this commercial fishery is at certain times of the year when our runs are so depleted.
And we're seeing a trend here. So not only do we not want to understand the impact of the gillnet fishery, but the other line item that was also vetoed by the governor was to improve salmon population data analysis and staffing WDFW to help with the North of Falcon process. Bring more data into that process so you can make really good, sound decisions based on data, right?
Yeah.
Well, he vetoed that as well.
Which I don't understand. It says the money is not available. And when we're talking about this other one that was asked, this 10-year look, right? Wanted to go from 2010 to 2020. Wanted to look at the impacts of Puget Sound. Wanted to look at the mortality rates on the ESA listed Chinook. Both tribal and recreational and the whole deal. It's like we really want to put a lens on this thing for a 10-year time frame. And what is the impact of the mortality rates on these ESA listed Chinook? Excuse me. That's one that I've asked for a number of years, and they were like, well, we don't have that information. Oddly enough, WDFW is responsible for producing that information. It's, in other words, it's supposed to be generated each and every season.
Right.
So when I read that they don't have money in the budget to generate the report.
Right. But they're closing seasons for it due to impacts.
Based on impacts.
Right.
And high mortality rates of catch and release. And it's like, well, then where are you garnering the data from if you don't have the reports? And there's not enough money in the budget to generate the report of information that should be generated each and every season, and they could collectively grab all 10 years and go, here you go, here's the average of impacts, here's the tribal contribution to ESA listed impacts, here's the recreational catch and release ESA impacts. This just goes back and forth.
The whole thing's laughable, okay?
It's just too many times.
They've got the data. When I think of, hey, publish a report, why don't you hit that print to PDF button and send me the Excel file that you have, okay? And I will look through the data.
Yeah. So you can read into this and understand that there are a certain number of items that the governor did veto. That's within his right, within his overall operating budget for the state. And this one is dialed down here on, specific items, line items within fisheries management. I get all that. But this goes back and forth and contradicts itself on what is being approved. It's like fluff. The $14.4 million is fluff. It's like, look at the shiny object over here so you don't really see what is truly happening down here in the basement. Because
and the other thing, so we now have a commission that is saying, oh, well, the data that you have, like in the case of the spring bear hunt, that's not good enough anymore. It's the same data we've been using for the past 10 years, but now, today, it is no longer valid. So we need more data, right? And there are line items in this budget that are requesting more granular data, more detail, more information about our fisheries and how we make these decisions. And they're saying, nope, we don't want it. We don't want to fund it. It's not even the most expensive line item, but we can't do that.
There's no money.
That tells you a lot, right?
Yep. You gotta, as you start lumping them all together, then it starts painting a picture.
Yep.
So kind of concerning. Anyway, lots of good information covered there, my friend. So sorry to be the bearers of bad news. It's just some of the things going on, and it's got our heads spinning. We're trying to figure it all out, make sense of it. Look, we're just looking for, sound decision making, science-based decision making, presenting information to the commission, and they can buy into the actual science that they ask for, and hopefully they make decisions in the right regard based on that science, because if they don't, they're undermining the staff that provides the science. They're telling these field biologists and persons that do the work, boots on the ground, you're not providing us with information that we don't believe you, basically is what they're saying. So, all right, buddy, good stuff. We're about there. We're about at the end. So appreciate everybody hanging on here tonight. Got any questions? As always, hit us up via Facebook and or YouTube, Messenger on each one. We often find time to get back, correspond to your requests and questions, and enjoy that dialogue as much as we can get to it. Any final thoughts?
No, sir. I hope my neck feels better. I got to straighten this thing out.
Yeah. You need to get back in that gym. You're looking a little svelty there. So
too skinny.
Yeah, too skinny. Too skinny Tommy, says no one. All right. Appreciate it. Had a great time tonight. Good show. Nice job, Tommy. And we are back here next Thursday, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
It'll be the 14th, and we are one day away from the turkey opener. So get ready for that. 15th. More to cover in that regard. Lots more info to get to in the weeks to come. Spring is here, and lots of opportunity out there. We're going to bring it to you each and every week right here out of the studio. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday right here, Fish on Northwest.